in my area, which is biochemistry, there are a lot of people working, so there's a lot of self-correction happening anyway. That's not to say people don't make mistakes, of course they do, and there's lots of debate in the published literature, that is in journals, in papers in journals and in conferences, about when people say, that's not the finding that I have. You might say that in your system, but it doesn't apply to my system, therefore you can't generalise from it. So that happens quite a lot, but it tends to be self-correcting. So when others bring up examples where it doesn't apply, that helps refine the original premise or hypothesis so that you get a better idea of what the underlying truths are and whether they're transferable between systems. So I can't think of something directly related to my work where a major theory's been overturned, but lots of examples where things get refined, which is how science is supposed to work.
We haven't had major mistakes. I've had to publish one erratum to a paper where some figures we discovered after the paper had been published were incorrect, and we had to publish a correction and the correct figure. Basically, as soon as we discover the error, you let the journal know and you correct it. That happens frequently in our journals, at least. It's just a matter of correcting it and standing up and saying, sorry, I made a mistake, here's the right answer. And there's certainly all the journals I work for and review for have absolutely no problem with people doing that. They will publish it in an instant. In terms of mistakes, they normally lead to my best results. If you don't follow a protocol exactly, you can sometimes get better results than what you expected. And they've actually led to some changes in protocol at our institute where someone has diverted slightly from what we should do and obtained evidence that helped solve a case. So it's just a matter of documenting that mistake and making sure you know what you did. And that's what we do every day.
The one that comes to mind relates to fire management in this state and all the states of Australia. And as I mentioned earlier, when my study site burnt down, that made me think a lot about the basis and the scientific basis for fire management. And for about, probably 3 to 4 years, I was confronting authorities and saying, what's the scientific basis for what you're doing? And the initial response to what I thought were shortcomings was denial. Everything's fine. The way we manage fire is scientifically based. And so, the initial response was denial. And it taught me a lot about polite persistence in challenging the norms and saying, well, let's agree that there are some big knowledge gaps here that need addressing, and perhaps we can improve on the way in which we manage fire if we have it as a more evidence-based procedure. So I see that as a responsibility for me to challenge what I believe was a mistake, and I think has still got lots of things to improve. So unfortunately, denial was the first method of response to a scientific mistake in my area.